Okay, if I speak at this level, can you hear me fine back there? Everyone good? Excellent. I'm going to chat for my 10 minutes about rapid delivery of design, and I'm going to hone it in on a fairly narrow market. And so recognizing that everyone here represents a very different perspective, and we work in a range of different markets, and so cut me some slack when you go, well, that doesn't fit to the kind of work that I do. I've been playing in this game now for a couple of decades, as virtually everyone else has, and so I want to suggest that clients ultimately really care about 4 different things. Solve my problem. Do you get me? Do you understand what my issues are, and are you going to solve it? Number 2, do it quickly, will you? Don't give me a lot of hassle while you're delivering it, and will you do it cheaply? Or don't cost me, bring me a lot of value. I would suggest that if we did an audit across the industry, that clients in general, and by the way, we market all of the first 4 things in pretty much all of our web pages. I can go across and we say all of those things. I would say that in general, clients would, in reverse order, say, you cost too much, you were really filled with hassle, you delivered way too slow, and I'm not completely sure you solved my problem, in general. Because none of those would be specific to anyone in this office, in this group here. We all don't say that. Yeah, so much, not so much, I suspect. So the question is why? Where's the hole? You know, we're kind of covering a lot of that here, and we all know that the process is kind of screwy, and it's not because of lack of good intent. So I want to kind of hone in a little on the process, and we're talking about that a great deal. I'm going to pick on one particular kind of project type, and I'm just going to talk about auditoriums for a minute, because it's one that's pretty easy to discuss. This is a project, I'm not going to talk about this project, but just talk about auditoriums in general. This is a project we're working with Beck on. Very complex projects in the sense that each one has it's very difficult to replicate them. You're dealing with code, compliancy, sightlines. You're dealing with the fact that everyone's a different seat count. You have the integration of catwalks, integration of ceiling, all of the technologies that go into it. It's a really complicated 3-dimensional exercise that you're working through. There's no prototypical issues in dealing with these elements. So when we work on these, and for example, when we work with Beck, we do these mostly in churches, and so I'll pick on that as a model. If you're doing performing arts, very different perspective. We usually have a timeline. Whoop, let me do that. There we go. A normal timeline is around 9 months, give or take. During the design, I'm talking about construction, the normal timeline is about that. And most people, clients, would say it's too long, it's too costly, it's filled with circular decisions, because you go back, and that's why it takes so long. It's not a lot of fun, by and large. The client often ends up not awfully happy through some of that process. Once in a while you get a happy client, and that's great. And what I would say is a lot of the projects we work on go somewhat longer than that, and occasionally a little shorter. The interesting thing is I've been involved in well over 1,000 projects. I've yet to see evidence that the longer cycle produces better design. I haven't seen it. In other words, the time length of the project doesn't seem to produce better design. They seem to be independent of the issues. Key factor. So a couple of the issues in this is I've observed waste. Waste in the process is a function and part of over-the-wall designs, siloed exercises. Several of you have mentioned these things. There's too many meetings people didn't want to come to, too much CYA reports that no one actually reads, or no one wants to read, no one wants to write, not enough design, and too much other stuff. So, and we haven't even talked about the construction process and the lack of integration of the construction process or the construction costing or any of those issues that create difficulties. So, you know, the question is there an alternative approach? So I ask myself, what if we sat down and we said, in a room together, and we said, we had to do this, well, client said this is what you have to do, and to the extent we agreed to the challenge. You've got to do it in half the time, with 20% less fee, with the goal of getting 10% more profit, getting better design with a happier client. What would you do? Because what we tend to do is try to compress the same process in a compressed fashion, and we just end up making less money and getting more frustrated. So what would that look like? And we've all kind of gone through these exercises in different ways. And the bottom line, of course, is we'll go, let's cut out the stuff that doesn't contribute value. And we all know that, and you've done it in different ways. So I'm going to hit the button again and suggest something that many of you have implemented and just give you our little twist on that. We're putting together what we've called a rapid prototyping process right up front, combining programming and the early part of schematic design into a very, very intense time. You guys are going to call it design charrette. We call it rapid prototyping. We think it's a little different. And you guys, several of you are doing these kinds of things, and some very similar. Very intense process. I'm going to give you some case studies of it for several days. Then pause while you go away and figure out what you just did. Resolve some of those issues. Come back again, do a design workshop. Again, a couple of days of very intense work timeline, and then go away, figure out again some of the hassles that you created that you have to resolve, and then go back into a standardized construction document phase. Now, when I say get together, I mean everyone gets together, the client, and all of the design team, including, if you can possibly make it happen, the construction team and whoever's doing the costing analysis. So everyone's at the table from the very first meeting of programming on, structural, mechanical, civil, everyone. Every time we've done this, it's been wildly successful. Now I'm going to give you a couple of variations of this. This is a project we did in Church Projects up in the Northeast. This was a 2-day project. We started with a blank sheet of paper, no programming. First time we met the client was a Monday morning. By the time they left on a Tuesday afternoon, this is with the architect, contractor, structural engineer, mechanical engineer didn't come, and the costing engineer. By the time they left, we delivered what you see. And this was worked out, and pretty much this is ultimately what's going to get built. This one took a little longer because this was actually done before the other one. We weren't as smart about it because we actually only came in during the day. By the way, that meant working through the night for some of our team. There's not much sleep involved in some of these exercises. We'll talk about that in a second. This was also done. This is a 3-day exercise. We didn't start the right cycle. Client came in, same kind of grouping. We didn't have as many people involved as I would have liked. But again, at the end of the day, the images you saw is what they were delivered. Third group, same situation. These are photos of our offices. Some of you have seen that. But a mixed group, and let's make that work. And then yet another one. The client came in, architect. This one came without the contract. I wish they just didn't. Sometimes we can't get our clients to bring the team on board fast enough. And we haven't been good enough to sell them on why that's important. We want to get better at that. So what are our, how much, 2 minutes, learnings? Wow, I need to get faster at this. There are several issues. The process, technology, and people. This is jazz, it's not orchestra. You need to have, orchestra is pre-prepared script. You've got to have improvisation skills. Prep is king. These are, you've got to look ahead of the curve, you've got to be far ahead of the curve and think what might happen and be ready for it. Creativity happens both in groups and in singles. You've got to plan for that. The prep for this is, in my view, very different from nearly all of the collaboration training that I've seen in the manuals. It's a very different context. I'll mention that in 30 seconds here. So, more people, the better. You've got to rehearse and plan for all of this. Technology, use collaboration tools. The stuff that I just saw Scott mention is awesome. The kind of technology tools that are available are fantastic. We did something at RDG when we took 120 shareholders and got them to contribute in a mind share. In about 20 minutes, got decisions out of them and created a hierarchy. And you guys can tell them separately how we did that just using Google tools. Very powerful. I seldom see that implemented in the large group meetings that we do. Our offices, we now have 5 video screens in one room, where everyone can touch and play and get their iPad onto any screen anywhere in the room. You need to have those kinds of technologies. Wireless everywhere, render farms, things of that nature. People, get the client, it's not about us. Learn some negotiation skills. Any of you haven't read Ava Abramovich's book? I would do that on Architect's Essentials for Negotiations, fantastic. Psychology. There's some interesting people in this room. Paddy likes to box for relaxation. He likes to fly downhill at really high speed on skis. Glenn likes to go sailing in Boston Harbor in January for reasons that defy comprehension, and I like to race motorcars. My point to all of that, I've got a book I'm reading for the second time, Psychology of Motorsports, and in sports psychology books will tell you a lot about how to deal with compressed timeline, high success teaming, and how you work on that. You get a lot out of those and how you do these rapid prototyping sessions. Thanks.